Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about assemblies and constraints. So I'm going to open my file from the previous video, and the first thing I want to talk about is conflicting or illegal constraints. So you'll notice now that we have this mate, which has an offset of 2 inches. If I now try to create a constraint with an offset of 0 inches between the same 2 faces, I will get an error. And this error is basically telling me that the constraint cannot be applied because it conflicts with existing constraints. And the way to resolve these errors is to just not do the constraint, locate the constraint that is causing you error, and delete it. So I deleted the offset constraint, and now I can constrain these 2 faces just like that together. The next thing I want to talk about is constraining to the planes, which is often a good practice and recommended. And what I mean by that is, under origin, you can expand that, constraining to these planes right here in order to center your part and lock in the center. So I can turn on visibility of each of these planes by right-clicking and clicking visibility. And now they are permanently here until I uncheck visibility. And let's say I wanted to constrain to these planes, I could just select these different faces and constrain directly to the plane, just like that. And I'm going to do this for all 3 planes, just like that. And when I'm done constraining to the planes, I can just turn off visibility. And the constraints still apply even though visibility is off. And now these 3 parts right here, the cylinder and the 2 houses, are completely locked in place. And this is good practice for constraining the center of your assemblies, so you can't just move around the assembly a whole lot randomly. It keeps it in place. Now there is another way to keep parts in place, and that is with grounding. Grounding is very finicky and not recommended in a lot of cases. So I'm going to demonstrate this by deleting these plane constraints. And now I can move this again. Grounding is basically just completely locking it in place without any constraints. So I can right-click this and I can click grounded. And now there's a pin on my cursor to show that this piece is grounded. And it's checkmarked right here. And it has the same effect basically, but it can cause a lot more errors, and it's very, very buggy. And it is useful for temporary problems or temporary tasks, but in the long term, I would definitely not recommend it. Definitely don't permanently ground stuff in your assembly. So I'm going to unground that. One other thing that I can talk about is you'll notice when you're in an assembly, you cannot edit parts directly. If I wanted to change the dimensions of these parts, I would have to right-click and click Open. And now I can make changes to this part, and it will change in here, though it may cause errors in the process. Another useful trick is free rotate and free move. I can right-click a part, and right here, free rotate and free move. Free rotate lets you just freely rotate, and this is helpful if you ever want to orient a part properly before you constrain it. It can be very useful, and it can also be useful if you cannot access certain faces and you want to constrain those faces. Free move is kind of similar in practicality. I can click free move, and now I can move this like this. So this is helpful if I wanted to access parts to apply constraints to. So for example, let's say I have this other house right here, and I wanted to constrain it to the cylinder as well. But right now there's no way to see the cylinder because it's inside this little block right here. I could use free move, right-click, free move, wrong part, right-click, free move, and now I can constrain, just like that. And when you're done constraining, the free move gets removed. It's not permanent. And that's basically all I wanted to talk about for greater depth assemblies and constraints. So I'm just going to save this, and we are done.